How did Ren and Stimpy go from this living hell to literally living in heaven? Well, we're about to find out. From the pound to the promised land. If you're not excited for a bit of Ren and Stimpy action, then you're an idiot! Before we let the boys loose, I think it's only fair if we lay a few quick ground rules. We've got the two main men of the show. Ren Hoek, an emotionally unstable, super selfish chihuahua with one hell of a mean streak. Then you've got his best buddy, Stimson J. Cat, or Stimpy to you and me. He's basically a lovable oath of a guy. He's silly, he's dumb, and he's loads of fun. Not that you asked or anything, but if you wanted to know what type of cat he is, he's a Manx cat, which is why he's got a short tail. Together, these two frantic furballs live many different lives and go on all sorts of adventures together. The show doesn't really have a setting or anything, like sometimes we're in space, other times we're in a rundown apartment. There are a few other characters that crop up from time to time, but we'll cover them when we get to them. For now though, I think you guys are set to dive in off the Ren and Stimpy deep end. Starting with the pilot episode, Big House of Blues, where Ren and Stimpy wander the streets, completely starving and completely hopeless. Pretty cheerful start to a kid's cartoon, huh? The guys have teamed up in the hope that they can find some food pretty quickly, but they seem to be on a dead-end street. And what's worse, the dog catcher is after them.
Hot diggity dog! I filled my quota for the day.
He snatches them away, tossing them into a big cage with a bunch of other animals, and takes them to the pound. This is where things suddenly turn weirdly cheerful as the animals in the pound throw a party. At the party, they meet a friendly dog named Phil, who's suddenly taken away by the dog catcher and never seen again. Jasper, one of the animals, tells Ren that Phil has been put to sleep, which Ren totally misunderstands and thinks that just means nap time. Ren then bumps into Jasper. He tells him once again that Phil isn't coming back, and that he's not just asleep, he's having the big sleep, and the little guy sure doesn't take it well.
The big sleep! The big sleep! The big sleep!
That's when Stimpy comes in and asks what all the commotion is and if they found out where Phil is yet. Oh, Stimpy, you're in for a shock, my man. Ren tells him that Phil is gone, that the big sleep means death, and usually that's where it'd stop. But for some reason, the crazy chihuahua has got it into his head that they're next. And right on cue, the dog catcher returns, ready to take them away. But a little girl sees Ren covered in hair, thanks to Stimpy throwing up nervous furballs, and thinks he's a cute little poodle, so she begs to take him home. The dog catcher agrees, and Ren is thrilled to be saved, but as he's leaving, he remembers Stimpy is still trapped and tells the girl she has to take him too. And Stimpy is pretty happy to say the least. At their new home, they meet the girl's mother, who gives Ren a sweater and Stimpy a litter box, his first real possession, which he hugs like a treasure and says he can't wait to use it. I mean, that's nice, isn't it? Well, the rehoming part, I mean, not that Stimpy can't wait to use his litter box. The actual series gets underway with the episode Stimpies Big Day, where our favorite cat is watching cartoons when Ren walks in and tells him he's too old for that kind of thing. Excuse me, Ren, I think you'll find you're never too old for a good cartoon. Stimpy obviously ignores him and keeps watching the Muddy Mud Skipper show. And to be honest, if that show was real, I'd totally watch it too. While in the middle of his binge, Stimpy sees a commercial that's advertising a contest from Gritty Kitty Litter, where cats are asked to write a poem of 40 million words or less about why they love the product. The winner will get $47 million. A mountain of goat cheese, a 12-hour record set of 1970s hits, and a trip to Hollywood to appear on the Muddy Mud Skipper show. That's all so oddly specific. Also, 40 million words, that's 100 times more than the combined number of words in the entire Lord of the Rings book series. But a little thing like that never stops Stimpy. He sits down and starts ironing out this huge poem, and somehow writes it with ease.
It fills my cat box, oh so snug.
When he goes to mail off his masterpiece, Ren tries to stop him in his tracks, trying to convince him that cartoons aren't real. Stimpy starts to doubt himself and hesitates, but ends up mailing the letter anyway and asks Ren to forgive him for falling to the dark side. That night, there's a knock at the door. Two humans are looking for Stimpy. They tell Ren that Stimpy has won the contest, and just as they're about to hand over the prize, Ren tries to pretend he's the Stimpy. After all that moaning and groaning, now you're trying to snatch the prize? That's low, Ren, even for you. Luckily, Stimpy wakes up just in time, and they see that Ren clearly isn't a cat, so the humans hand him the giant bag of money and take Stimpy away to the big world of Hollywood. Now there, Stimpy meets Muddy Mud Skipper and starts his first job in a cereal commercial. But after Ren hears that he's wasting cereal, he finds his old friend to scold him.
Get your hand out of that box! How many times do I have to tell you?
The very next episode, The Big Shot, picks up where the last one left off. After their little fallout in the cereal commercial, Ren is living alone and starts thinking about Stimpy, wondering what he's doing now, missing him more and more as there's a weird silence around him. His former friend has actually been demoted in the big time of Hollywood. He's still there, but now he's filming Gritty Kidder litter infomercials at giant supermarkets. Not so much sham wow, more sham underwhelming. Back at home, Ren lies in bed, staring at a photo of Stimpy on the nightstand. He turns off the lights and tries to sleep. But when he rolls over, he sees Stimpy's face imprinted on the pillow beside him. So he moves to the living room to sleep, but it doesn't help. Stimpy seems to appear everywhere he looks. Back over with the cash cow cat, he's moving back up the ladder. He's now diving into a huge swimming pool filled with Gritty Kitty litter, which might sound a little strange, but hey, the guy is a multimillionaire, so I guess he can do what he wants now that he's living in luxury and surrounded by fame. Ren, meanwhile, is still desperate to distract himself from his best friend leaving, so he flips on the TV and starts switching channels, but every single one has Stimpy's face. Every commercial, every show, every second. Until he lands on the Muddy Mud Skipper show and watches in disbelief as Stimpy appears again. After the show, Muddy congratulates Stimpy on his performance, but instead of celebrating, Stimpy looks sad. Overwhelmed by the feeling that something's missing, he admits to himself that he's not happy without Ren. So, he returns home, showing up at the door to find Ren waiting, and Ren is thrilled to see him, finally whole again. So his friend is back and he's got millions of dollars to spend with him. Right? Wrong. To come home, Stimpy decided he was gonna hit the factory reset button and give away his fortune. And, Ren doesn't take it well.
You fat, bloated idiot!
Stimpy just stands there and takes it though, finally happy to be back where he belongs. The next episode on our list is the first installment in the Stimpy Storybook Land trilogy, and it's called Robin Hoek, and as you can guess, it's the Ren and Stimpy take on the Prince of Thieves. The episode starts with the pair getting ready for bed and taking a moment to say their prayers. Stimpy asks for his family to be protected, while Ren asks for $1 million, a fridge with a padlock, and giant pecs. He doesn't want much, does he? In the middle of the night, Stimpy wakes up and asks Ren to read him a bedtime story. A tired and annoyed Ren tells him to read it himself. So Stimpy heads over to his litter box, pulls out a storybook, and begins reading the tale of Robin Hoek. In the book, Ren plays the titular hero, the leader of a band of misfits known as the Merry Men, with Stimpy playing all the other members. There's Friar Chuck, Little Brain, Ransack the Elder, Elkhorn the Downtrodden, and Maid Moron, the most beloved of them all, who lives in a distant castle across Logwood Forest. Maid Moron is being held captive by the sheriff of Dodge City. I can't get over the name Maid Moron. Friar Chuck is good, but Maid Moron? That might be the best name ever. As the story goes on, Robin faces a series of over-the-top challenges and strange adventures in his quest to save his moron, battling his way across the land until finally confronting the evil sheriff. The two face off, and Robin defeats him by covering him in a massive helping of giblet gravy. With the sheriff taken down, Robin and Maid Moron are married, but when it's time to kiss the bride, Robin refuses. Suddenly, the story ends and we're slapped back to the bedroom, where Ren is tossing and turning in his sleep. He wakes up screaming, relieved it was all just a dream, but as he opens his eyes, he sees Stimpy standing beside the bed, fully dressed as Maid Moron. In Nurse Stimpy, Stimpy wakes up and discovers that Ren is sick, lying in bed looking super miserable. So, without blinking, Stimpy puts on a nurse's outfit and becomes Nurse Stimpy, promising to make Ren feel better no matter what. He starts by running a few tests, including a blood pressure check. Then, it's time for medicine. Stimpy brings over a giant spoon filled with thick liquid and feeds it to Ren, who immediately gags and complains about how awful it tastes. Hey, if it works, it works. 4 months pass, and Ren is still sick, still stuck in bed, and Renby suddenly notices a terrible smell in the room. He traces it back to Ren, who hasn't bathed in weeks. So Stimpy decides it's time for a sponge bath. In the tub, Ren begins to understand that Stimpy's just trying to help, even though he still feels awkward being washed by his friend. I've never been in that position, but I can assure you guys, I too would be awkward if my friend gave me a sponge bath. Stimpy tries to reassure him that no one's watching, but outside the window, Mr. Horse and a group of others are watching every second. And they do worse than just watch. They leak Ren's bath to the press, and the next day, there's new headlines.
Ren Hoek takes bubbly sponge bath?
The shock and embarrassment causes Ren to relapse, and days go by with him still as ill as ever. Stimpy starts to break down, ranting about how much he's done for his friend, hooking up machines, bottle feeding him, staying by his side day and night, doing everything possible. But the next morning, Ren wakes up completely fine. he's a cured Chihuahua. But when he goes to check on Stimpy, he finds this.
Stimpy! Oh my gosh!
Go and get yourself that nurse outfit, Ren. In Space Madness, Stimpy is sitting in front of the TV, excited to watch his favorite live-action drama, Commander Hoek and Cadet Stimpy. In the show, Ren plays Commander Hoek, a space captain on a long-haul mission through the galaxy, with Stimpy as his loyal second-in-command, Cadet Stimpy. They've been traveling to Crab Nebula over and over for the past 36 years, and while Ren writes in his captain's log, he mentions how some people go insane from being in deep space too long, though he laughs it off and claims it won't happen to him. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call a jinx. Knowing he needs to unwind, Ren calls for a break, so they go to the break room and sit in silence. That is, until Stimpy asks what they should do and Ren suggests they spend quality time together. But it's not long before they're rubbing each other up the wrong way. He lashes out at Stimpy for drumming his fingers, then apologizes, admitting the isolation might be getting to him. See? This is why you never count your space chickens before they hatch. Stimpy then suggests they eat, and he returns with 3 flavors of paste. Yummy. Ren loses his patience again, frustrated there's no real food, and begins banging his head on the table, with Stimpy trying to comfort him. To help Ren relax, Stimpy prepares a bath and turns off gravity, making Ren float with the water above the floor. While Stimpy leaves to do his duties, Ren stays alone, trying to calm himself by thinking of real food. But it's not long before he hits rock bottom. He starts talking to a bar of soap, believing it's a chocolate ice cream bar. Stimpy overhears him talking to the soap and realizes his friend has lost it. When he comes in to try and sort things out, Ren accuses Stimpy of trying to steal his ice cream bar, screams about his childhood, threatens him with a toothbrush, and brushes his teeth wildly before breaking down in a corner. That's pretty much what I do most weekends. Having calmed down a bit, Ren writes in his log again, claiming Stimpy is the one who's gone mad and decides to give him more responsibilities. He takes Stimpy to a small room with a red button in the center and tells him not to touch it, calling it the History Eraser button. He leaves Stimpy to guard it forever, saying no one will ever know what happens if it's pressed. Left alone, Stimpy begins his task, but the narrator starts to tempt him, teasing and urging him to push the button, calling out to him again and again. Eventually, unable to resist any longer, Stimpy gives in and presses it. It's a good thing this is just a TV show. On a TV show, because the real Ren and Stimpy are still alive and kicking. In The Boy Who Cried Rat, Ren and Stimpy are caught scavenging from trash cans and chased off by a furious George Liquor. Yeah, that is the guy who played the sheriff of Dodge City earlier. Good catch. He's a recurring character, so we'll be seeing more of him. Their hunger drives them to hatch a sneaky plan to score food and money by turning Ren into a disguised mouse hiding in the Pipe's home, with Stimpy posing as a professional mouse catcher. I mean, he is a cat after all. Their plan works like a charm at first. Stimpy convinces Mr. and Mrs. Pipe to pay him $5 up front to trap this ugly rat that has invaded their house. Ren, decked out in white gloves and red shorts, stays just out of reach, swiping at Stimpy with pans and mallets in a style that Tom and Jerry would be proud of. Eventually, Ren lets Stimpy capture him, and it seems like mission accomplished. But suddenly, the Pipes want more. They insist Stimpy prove his skills by eating the rat. Obviously, the guys are pretty desperate for a quick buck, but they don't want to kill each other. Stimpy tries to fake himself eating Ren, but after the Chihuahua tickles his tongue and is spat out, the Pipes soon realize they're being duped. What's worse is that Stimpy accidentally swallowed the $5 they made too. So they don't even have that. The Pipes give the pair a pretty big punishment, like a whole mountain of chores to pay off that $5 debt. It's time for the second installment of Stimpy's Storybook Land, now as we come to the Littlest Giant. The episode starts off exactly the same as it did for Rob and Hoek, both the guys praying and Stimpy not being able to sleep without a bedtime story. And as Ren nods off, Stimpy heads over to immerse himself in a new tale, where he plays a small, clumsy giant who lives among much bigger and meaner cat giants in the land of Hugavania. I'm not sure how a giant can be small, but we've got to suspend our disbelief. We're watching a talking cat, for crying out loud. Well, not only is he small, he's so small that the other giants bully him constantly with some Three Stooge-style slapstick, smacking him around and mocking him whenever they can. Eventually, the cruelty becomes too much, and he decides to leave, writing a farewell letter calling himself your punching bag, and sets off, sobbing non-stop as he walks straight out of the country and across the ocean. Oh, that's pretty sad, man. Look at the little guy. His journey leads him to Thumbsville, a tiny town suffering through a brutal drought, where a frustrated farmer named Wee Ren is struggling to survive. His cow can't give milk, his pig is drying out in the heat, and his chickens are laying nothing but dust. One morning, Ren wakes up to find the giant Stimpy weeping beside his dried-up well. Stimpy's endless tears flow into the ground and fill the well, saving the crops and animals, bringing life back to the farm. As Stimpy wraps up the story with a cheerful happily ever after, we're thrust back into reality, where Ren wakes up and sees that Stimpy has actually transformed into Giant Stimpy in real life, with his enormous nose poking into Ren's house. Could you say he's Ren's new nosy neighbor? No? Okay. It's time to check back in with the boys in space, Commander Hoek and Cadet Stimpy, as they continue their cruise through space. Things start going wrong though when their ship is suddenly pulled into a black hole, or as the boys call it, the hideous vortex. They're sucked in with no chance of escape, spiraling through the cosmos before finally shooting out the other side, into a strange and unsettling alternate universe. Everything's off in this new place. The colors are wrong, the shapes don't make sense, and worst of all, their bodies begin to mutate. Eventually, they come across a giant mountain made entirely of socks, specifically all the missing left socks from across the universe. Dang, so that's where all my left socks went. As they stare in disbelief, Stimpy's super complicated space-time doohickey alerts them that they must reach the trans-dimensional gateway by 3 p.m., or they'll be trapped in this dimension forever. Ren checks the time and realizes they only have 5 minutes to make it. They rush across the bizarre terrain and make it to the gateway just in time, but they hit one last obstacle. They need exact change to use it. With no proper coins, they're kicked out, left standing helplessly as their bodies continue to mutate. Ren explains that if they don't escape soon, their molecules will completely break down and scatter into nothing. Stimpy says he'd rather implode than disintegrate, and sets a nearby device to self-implode. But right as the timer ticks down, he realizes he had the exact change in his pocket the entire time.
I had a whole pocket full of change all the time.
In the season 1 finale, Stimpy's invention, Stimpy has the bright idea that he wants to be an inventor, so he jumps straight in to create a bunch of strange and ridiculous gadgets. His first invention is the Cheezophone, a device that lets you talk to cheese in any language. Pretty good invention there, Stimpy. Dare I say, great. Come on guys, you know I can't resist a good pun. Next, Stimpy unveils a remote shaving machine that gives you a close shave without having to be present. Ren becomes the test subject, and within seconds, most of his fur is gone, shaved clean off by the out-of-control device. Before Ren can attack him in fury, Stimpy distracts him with a gift, his latest creation, the Stay Put socks, socks that never fall down. Don't they say necessity is the mother of invention? Who the hell needs socks that always stay up? Stimpy runs off to find the matching Stay Put hat and raincoat, leaving Ren behind, trying to yank his feet free from the glue-filled socks that Stimpy has made. When Stimpy returns and sees that Ren is furious, he decides to invent something new, something that will keep Ren happy forever. After working for hours, Stimpy creates the Happy Helmet, a giant device that forces Ren into a constant state of cheerfulness by controlling his emotions. Once the helmet is on, Ren turns into a smiling, helpful version of himself, doing everything for Stimpy, cleaning the litter box, ironing his underwear, obeying every request without question. To celebrate, Stimpy brings home a record of his favorite song, Happy Happy Joy Joy, by Stinky Whizzleteats, and the two of them dance around to the music. But in the middle of the dancing, something inside Ren snaps. He runs into the kitchen, pulls out a hammer, and smashes the Happy Helmet off his head. And with the Happy Helmet off, Ren can once again be his angry little self. Season 2 opens with the episode In the Army, where Ren and Stimpy head to the Army induction office to enlist, but they quickly realize they don't exactly fit in next to the towering muscular recruits. Their first challenge is an eye test, which Ren misreads as a threatening message before he's jabbed with a massive injection. Next comes the buzz cut. Both of them lose the tops of their hair and head to get their uniforms before being shipped off to boot camp. At first, Ren thinks training won't be so bad, but that changes fast when they meet the drill sergeant. The drill sergeant begins shouting orders, but Ren can't understand a word, while Stimpy follows along easily. When they're told to drop and give 20, Stimpy hits the ground and starts doing push-ups, but Ren misinterprets the command and hands over $20, which the sergeant immediately tears up. Hey, $20 is a lot to those guys too. It wasn't that long ago Ren was dressing up as a mouse for $5. They're then brought to the tear gas room for training. Inside, the air is thick with the stench of rotten cheese. They put on their breathing masks, but are soon ordered to take them off. The gas hits Stimpy hard. His skin turns green, his eyes bulge, and he bursts into tears. Ren, on the other hand, remains calm and unaffected, revealing that he held his breath and cheated the whole exercise. He brags that he's smarter and always knows how to work around the system, until he walks right into a tank operated by the sergeant, who sends them back to peel watermelons as punishment. They're later assigned to carry heavy sacks, but Ren keeps collapsing into the mud. He complains about the task and decides to take a rest, but it's not long before the sergeant is on his tail. Back at the barracks, both are drained, their feet swollen and reeking after taking off their boots. Ren tries to sleep, but he can't. He's driven to madness by his sleeplessness until he finally snaps. After the sergeant dishes out more punishment to the pair, they both sit exhausted, and they slowly realize that they're kinda important now. But they're sick of this place and want to split as soon as they can. So Ren hoists Stimpy up on his back and tries to make a break for it, but they're once again stopped by the sergeant.
Congratulations! You graduated!
Hooray! Now they've graduated, and now they're certified tank paratroopers. They even get their own uniform. I can't lie though, every army probably wants a Ren and Stimpy. Can you imagine the chaos they'd cause on the battlefield? In Ren's Toothache, Ren is jolted awake every single night by Stimpy's obsessive dental hygiene routine, where he scrubs his teeth loudly, scraping, sloshing, and gargling in the most irritating ways imaginable. See what I mean? Ren's obviously annoyed by his friend making that much noise and, in his anger, admits that he's never brushed his teeth in his life, which is wild. Ren tries to go back to sleep, but it doesn't last long. I guess those years without brushing have finally caught up to him. With his teeth in serious pain, he turns to Stimpy for help, and he explains the pain by telling a horrifying story about the tooth beaver, a nasty creature who chews on nerve endings, which Stimpy calls the tastiest part of the human body. You know, I could have gone my entire life without envisioning a scary beaver gnawing on tooth nerves. Despite the pain and the scary story, Ren still refuses to brush his teeth and they begin to crack and rot away, decaying overnight. And to make matters worse, Ren is also a tooth grinder. The one night while he sleeps, he manages to completely wear them away. There's nothing left in his mouth but nerves. Ripe for a hungry beaver. But when the beaver stops by, even he is repulsed by Ren's mouth and refuses to come near. It's so bad that flies fly out of Stimpy's filthy litter box and leave the house in disgust after seeing Ren's gums. Finally defeated, Ren realizes he should have listened and admits that he should have brushed. Stimpy tries to cheer him up, but fails until he tells another strange story. This time about the nerve-ending tooth fairy who collects nerve endings and leaves behind $100 bills. Hopeful, Ren yanks out the last of his nerve endings and places them under his pillow. That night, the nerve-ending fairy arrives, but when he checks his wallet, he realizes he's out of cash, so instead he tosses a ball of lint under the pillow and flies away. The next morning, Ren eagerly checks under his pillow and is crushed, to find only a small clump of lint. Heartbroken, he slowly walks to the kitchen table and sees a wrapped gift waiting for him. He opens the box, and inside is a huge, healthy tooth. Ren happily shoves it into his mouth and thanks Stimpy, who tells him it was his own tooth, a gift from one friend to another. That's the most heartfelt yet disgusting gift I've ever seen in my entire life. It's family time in the episode Sven Hoek when Ren's cousin Sven comes to visit, but Ren's excitement quickly fades when he realizes Sven is just as dim-witted as Stimpy. The two hit it off instantly, bonding over gross personal items and even sticking rubber gloves on their heads, calling themselves Lodge Brothers of the Loyal Order of Stupids. I don't know, Ren, this sounds pretty funny. I'd love to be a Lodge Brother of the Loyal Order of Stupids. But Ren is horrified, watching the two bounce around the house, so he decides he's gonna head out for a while and begs them to behave while he's gone. But when he comes home, as you can imagine, the place isn't exactly spotless. His prized possessions have been completely ruined. His opera records are now glued together with bubblegum. His cabinet of rare, incurable diseases has been opened, and several have escaped through the kitchen sink. Don't ask me why he has a cabinet of incurable diseases, we all know what he's like. But what we didn't know is that he's got this level of anger in him.
Yeah.
Before acting on his threats, he heads to the bathroom to cool off, demanding they stay put. That's when he notices a strange board game set up in the living room called Don't Whiz on the Electric Fence. The two idiots proudly call it their favorite game in the whole wide world, so Ren decides he's gonna get his own back, stepping forward and mocking the warning, laughing as he does indeed whiz on the electric fence, but he's in for a shock alright. After blowing the house to kingdom come, we see Ren, Stimpy, and Sven in hell, surrounded by fire and brimstone. This is like maybe my favorite episode of the show. I know it's pretty well regarded with most fans too. I think everyone loves Ren's little outburst, even if part of it got banned. It's time for another fan favorite now, Stimpy's Fan Club, and it opens with Ren and Stimpy sitting by the mailbox, waiting eagerly for the daily delivery. A massive load of fan mail arrives, but every single letter is for Stimpy and none for poor old Ren. Ren's ego takes a hit, leaving him sulking and miserable. Seeing this, Stimpy tries to cheer him up by making him the president of his fan club, giving Ren the task of reading and responding to all the letters as Stimpy. At first, Ren is excited and proud of his new role, but that changes quickly when a little girl's letter mocks him, asking why Stimpy puts up with Ren's abuse. So Ren responds with a bitter and passive-aggressive letter, calling her stupid and insisting that Stimpy isn't even real, and even if he was, he wouldn't be as good as him. Then, another young fan writes in about wetting the bed and asks for advice. Ren is disgusted and cruelly writes back saying he's going to tell all the boys' friends to stay away from him forever. I actually think Ren is valid for this one. I mean, can you imagine writing a letter to Robert De Niro asking him for your help on your ingrown toenail? Anyway, when Stimpy reads the reply, he's disappointed and tells Ren he should be ashamed, reminding him that lots of kids deal with that and that both of them still wet the bed sometimes. Ren promises to be more positive, as he feels super guilty for shaming someone over something they can't really control. So he continues handling fan mail, but he notices a pattern. Everyone loves Stimpy and hates him, but he forces himself to write kind, thoughtful responses. For a while anyway, because it's not long before the jealousy eats away at him and he becomes increasingly angry, frustrated, and exhausted. That night, Ren fully spirals into full madness. Sleep-deprived and consumed by envy, he rants to himself, feeling dirty for being nice to children he thinks are dumb. He believes the fan club is a cruel joke, and eventually blames Stimpy for all of it. And the only way to fix things is to... Hold on, let me check my notes. Kill Stimpy in his sleep? What? Luckily, his conscience gets the better of him there, but the next morning, Ren puts on a Stimpy costume and plans to solve the mail problem himself. When the mailman arrives, he tells him to stop delivering letters for Stimpy, but the mailman says there's only one letter today, and it's for Ren. Overjoyed, Ren tears it open and proudly reads it aloud, basking in the praise of someone who calls him a hero and role model. He mocks Stimpy, rubbing it in with laughter and even smacking him in the face while gloating. When he finishes reading, he realizes the letter is from Stimpy. The next episode we'll be looking at, A Yard Too Far, is a little throwback to the golden age of cartoons. You know, those Hanna-Barbera classics. It starts with Ren and Stimpy starving thanks to them catching a whiff of something irresistible floating through the air. So what could be on order for the boys? A nice pie? Maybe some chicken? Not exactly. Those, my friends, are hog jowls, and no, I didn't even know you could eat them before I watched this episode. And obviously, they're Ren's absolute favorite. The only problem is that Ren is convinced there's a vicious guard dog in the yard, just waiting to attack them. So Stimpy checks and tells him there's no dog, so Ren makes a run for it. You know what? Stimpy was right. There is no dog, but there is this.
Baboon's asleep.
They back off and decide to head back later when that baboon has nodded off, so they don't end up on the menu themselves. In an attempt to sneak through, Ren rips off Stimpy's skin and sends it crawling under the fence to steal the jowls. The skin makes it most of the way through the house unnoticed, but just before reaching the food, Mr. Pipe mistakes the skin for a piece of meat and tosses it straight to the baboon. Helpless, Stimpy watches in horror as his skin is devoured. That's pretty gnarly, man. I mean, it's always nice to see Mr. Pipe, but like, this show is for kids. Out of options, the pair come up with a new plan. They disguise themselves as Mr. Pipe's wife, so they sneak back into the yard in costume. And at first, the baboon growls and prepares to attack, but the disguise manages to do the trick, allowing them to get closer to the crown jowls. And they're almost within reach when Mr. Pipe suddenly announces that it's his wife's turn to get fed to the baboon.
Because it's your turn to be mauled by the baboon.
Now battered and bruised, the pair only have enough energy for a final attempt. So Ren creates a puppet of a female baboon, hoping to distract the real one. A trick he picked up from watching the Sylvester the Chicken cartoon, and the plan works way better than expected, with the baboon falling for the puppet hook, line, and sinker. Giving Stimpy enough time to sneak through and grab the hog jowls, he returns triumphantly and presents them to Ren. But there's a catch. The baboon refuses to let go of the puppet. You know, that's got Ren's whole hand in, but one hand and hog jows is better than 2 hands and no hog jows, so the two sit happily munching on their favorite pork treat. I tried to think of a way to make them sound nice, but at the end of the day, they're hog jows. Can't put lipstick on a pig and all that. In Stimpy's cartoon show, Ren finds Stimpy scribbling away in the basement, sharpening a pencil with his ear and spitting shavings into a trash can. And when Ren asks what he's up to, Stimpy proudly explains he's animating a cartoon like his idol, Wilbur Cobb, who, by the way, is like one of the ugliest cartoon characters I've ever seen. Anyway, Ren is secretly jealous about his friend's passion, especially when he wins the Golden Pencil Award. So Ren decides enough is enough and asks Stimpy if he can help out with the project by being the show's producer. And just like that, the boys are a team again. The next morning, Stimpy clocks in as the animator while Ren begins producing, giving himself weeks off and leaving Stimpy with impossible deadlines. Stimpy draws storyboards, nails cells to a wall, while Ren spends his days lounging, attacking Stimpy for the smallest mistakes while wearing his golden producer hat, before going completely overboard, trashing Stimpy's storyboard in front of him. Ren uses this display of dominance, I guess you could call it, and becomes a total control freak, going as far as forcing Stimpy to buy his own pencils from him. While Stimpy has his nose to the grindstone, Ren relaxes by the pool, barking orders while Stimpy carries heavy supplies, and edits in the film room and nearly collapses, not before managing to finish the final reel of the show. The next day, Ren lazily tests the cartoon near the pool, but is pretty unimpressed, so throws it to Stimpy, who can finally go and show his hero his final film. They arrive at Cobb's dim office, only to find he's, well, like I said, the ugliest character I've ever seen.
I can't do lunch.
Rob finally agrees to watch the cartoon, though Ren and Stimpy grow increasingly worried if he's actually well enough to watch it. But the only man powers on. Stimpy's film, I Like Pink, begins, and it's an amateurish mess really. Sorry Stimpy, I know you worked hard on it. Despite the low quality though, Cobb sings its praises, but warns Stimpy that men like him are disposable. It reminds him one day he'll be in Cobb's place. And it turns out Cobb wasn't in an office at all, he's in prison. And he then straps Ren and Stimpy into electric chairs before the credits roll and sentences the trio to death. Pretty dark, but obviously the boys are okay, somehow. Ren and Stimpy do their best David Attenborough impressions in the lair of the Lummox as they host an installment of Untamed World. The episode opens with Ren and Stimpy dressed as nature documentary hosts, welcoming viewers to another installment of their new doc, The Untamed World. Their mission takes them to the mysterious island of Ignorania, where they're searching for a legendary and elusive creature known as the Lummox. They trek through the dense jungle where they come across piles of strange droppings, filled with leftover food and random junk like old pizza boxes, which is a clear sign a Lummox looms. Following the trail, they soon come face to face with the creature itself, the Booger Red Lummox to give its full name.
And what a magnificent specimen he is!
As the Lummox eats and slouches around, Ren and Stimpy try to observe him quietly, but Ren accidentally snaps a twig, drawing the Lummox's attention. To avoid being noticed, the two begin imitating the creature's behavior, digging in their noses, scratching themselves, and playing with their food in ridiculous ways, like using steak to comb their hair or smashing mashed potatoes on their faces. Trying to be friendly, the Lummox offers Stimpy a plate of purple giblets, which is basically chicken or turkey organs, and Stimpy politely declines, saying he's a vegetarian. But this sets off the Lummox. Ren panics and shoves a bucket of lard into Stimpy's hands, forcing him to gulp down the entire thing, including the bucket. Satisfied, the Lummox embraces them and calls them his cousins, leading them back to his log cabin where they spend the night watching TV together. The next day, a new Lummox appears, this one known as the Tree Lummox, who strips off his briefs and hangs them on a tree branch to impress a potential mate. The other Lummox follows suit as obviously can't be outdone by a rival, especially when a female Lummox is nearby. But who will she go for? Furious and jealous, the original Lummox challenges his rival to a contest, and the two go toe-to-toe. And he comes out on top, winning the affection of the female like it was nothing. That boy got game.
The female comes to claim her champion.
The Season 4 opener, Hermit Ren, gets underway with Stimpy having a blast with his accordion and singing his own version of Kumbaya under the moonlight. Like I say, he's having a great time, carefree and cheerful. Ren, on the other hand, has just returned home, and he's in no mood for anything musical. Actually, he's not really in the mood for much, and it's only made worse by having some seriously bad luck. He burns his mouth on overcooked chicken, drinks spoiled milk, and when it comes to shaving time, this happens. Ren finally reaches his breaking point, screaming in frustration and swearing off not just Stimpy, but the entire world. He storms out of the house, determined to live a life of a total loner. I don't mean he's gonna get an apartment all to himself. The little guy literally goes and lives high in the mountains. He's even greeted by a rep from the Hermit's Union and welcomed into his new role as a hermit before moving into a dark cave where he's confident that he's better off alone. While exploring his new home, he discovers a bizarre mummified bogman and decides to treat it as his roommate. Hold on a sec, that's not being a total loner, is it? Anyway, life as a hermit isn't as great as Ren pictured. He's hungry all the time, and then there's also the extreme loneliness part. I mean, what did he expect? But being alone for so long drives him to madness, to the point he starts sculpting imaginary friends. Back at the Hermit Union, the leader somehow hears about Ren's new friends, the mummy and the statue of bat dropping. This apparently violates the strict rules of solitude, who'd have guessed? And obviously, the Union is outraged by Ren, so they revoke his hermit license and throw him out of his cave. Left with nowhere else to go, Ren returns home. Seeing Stimpy again, he realizes just how much he missed him, and just how much cleaner he smells than his statue. And just like that, the boys are friends again. It's high time we check back in with those two stooges in space, Commander Hoek and Cadet Stimpy, as they're still hurtling through space in the episode The Scotsman in Space. After we saw them getting blown up last time, they're now back on another mission, but this time it's for a special stick of gum. Problem is, they've been traveling for over 36 years at this point, so Ren is once again going a little crazy, to the point he starts hallucinating a floating silhouette of Haggis McHaggis. 10 out of 10 for creativity. Stimpy obviously can't see the flying Scotsman, and Ren gets increasingly agitated thinking that Haggis and Stimpy are working against him. But his madness is soon squashed by the real Haggis McHaggis floating past the window. They invite Haggis on board and try to communicate using a universal translator, only to find out he speaks perfect English. He explains he's looking for his lost sheep, but Stimpy misunderstands and cooks him a meal using the cheesy bake oven, which misidentifies Scotland as a planet. Stimpy serves Haggis. Not the person, the food. But being nice to a friendly Earthling isn't strictly on the agenda for Ren and Stimpy, as they decide it's time for scientific research and begin dissecting Haggis. Stimpy scoops out a bit of his brain and eats it, while Ren gets ready to inspect his teeth, until Stimpy reminds him Scots don't have teeth and hurls Haggis's wooden dentures out the window. Yeah, that's true, guys. They also have to brush their teeth with bagpipes and have iron brew baths. All this dissecting isn't good for the Scotsman, and during breakfast the next day, he has a seizure over overcooked eggs and dies on the spot. His filthy wallet drops from his kilt, and when Ren cleans it, a genie emerges, the Dead Space Scot Genie, offering 3 wishes plus 3 bonus ones in a limited time deal. That's pretty handy. Ren immediately wishes for beautiful women to bring him all the money in the world, and the genie grants it. Gold coins rain down and 3 alien women appear, making Ren feel genuinely happy for the first time. Stimpy asks for a wish too, and Ren reluctantly gives in, and Stimpy wishes that no one will ever need material possessions again, which isn't the best idea when you're out in space. Now, gasping for air with the ship gone, Stimpy uses his next wish to go somewhere sunny where no one ever grows old. So the genie sends them hurtling toward the sun, where they're literally burnt to a crisp. Those boys don't have much luck in space, do they? You've waited a while, but now it's time for the final installment of the Stimpy Storybook Land trilogy, and this tale is called The Pixie King. The story begins in the quiet little village of Coco Canoe, at the base of a grand elm tree. In a tiny donut box live 2 elves that look suspiciously like Ren and Stimpy. The 2 wake up to a breakfast of canned sardines. Ren dreams of a better life, one with a real job and a beautiful wife. Then, the 2 dress in elf costumes and catch the bug bus to work, only to be forced to sit at the back with the tapeworms and the other cheap little fools. But as sad as it is, in this world only pixies get to sit at the front of the bus. At work, their duties are pretty strange and whimsical. They sing about someday dying happily, kiss flowers and remove pollen from bees. Though Ren sure starts feeling the sting. After a long day, the 2 of them shower, and Ren grumbles about wanting an easier way to get pixie dust. That's when he overhears 2 other elves talking about the recent death of the Pixie King. And Ren immediately plots to take over and claim the riches for himself. The next morning, Ren wakes Stimpy up early to start climbing the ranks. He tackles the tallest flower and braves the waterfall of dew. No one else dares harvest. Together, they clean the bees again, and a massive fly helicopter delivers their haul to headquarters, where they're rewarded by Creepy Wilbur once again. This time, there's not an electric chair in sight. Ren soon learns that whoever gathers the most pixie dust becomes the new king, so he sneaks out at night and heads to a human's eye, gathering some disgusting gunk that'll help him collect as much pixie dust a chihuahua could ever dream of. Back in the village, Ren is crowned king and immediately starts issuing orders, but Stimpy reminds him of his royal duties. Ren is then forced to consume royal jelly, where he gets a little more bang for his royal buck. So clearly being a pixie or a bee pixie or whatever the hell those guys were clearly isn't worth it. It's only a bedtime story after all, not like it's real. The episode Insomniac Ren kicks off with Ren getting ready for bed, reminding Stimpy that they need to be up early for a 6 a.m. golf tea time. As Stimpy fumbles around getting ready, Ren warns him he has until the count of 3 to get into bed, so Stimpy dives under the covers just in time. And Ren tries to settle in for the night. But when you want to go to sleep, it's never that easy. Ren starts hearing the sound of running water, and even when that's sorted, one thing after another keeps disturbing him. Not least Stimpy, who's just as restless, tossing, turning, making strange noises, and even snoring so loudly it sounds like a dog barking right beside Ren's head. Which is pretty funny to me, because, you know, he's a cat. Ren tries everything to block out the sound, even going as far as stuffing Stimpy's mouth, but nothing works. The big cat just snores right through it. Determined to finally get some shut-eye, Ren marches into the living room, where he'll at last be surrounded by silence. Or so he thought. To try and pull himself off to sleep and to drown out any other noises, he then flips on the TV, and it works. But just as he begins to drift off, some loud, heavy static hits him, and jolts him back to being wide awake. So in another frustrated huff, he decides to head back to bed, where he tells himself that he can't sleep because he's simply too smart, unlike Stimpy, who's snoring away because he's an idiot. Eventually, it's 6 a.m. and the alarm blares and Ren hasn't slept at all. And to make things worse, Ren has some visitors.
What are you doing in bed, Hoek? We've got to tee off in 10 minutes.
He apparently promised to drive them all to the course, but instead he offers to pay them all $5 if they can knock him out cold. And the episode ends with a limp, unconscious Ren who's snoring softly at last.
Shh. Ren's taking a coma.
In My Shiny Friend, Stimpy is glued to the television, completely zoned out while Ren gets ready for work. By the way, no one really knows what Ren does for work. He's like a secret agent or something, I swear. Ren's not exactly happy that his friend gets to be a layabout while he's busy earning a living, so he tells Stimpy to stop being lazy and do the ironing himself. But as soon as Ren leaves, Stimpy goes right back to watching his shows, and you know what? I'd probably do the same. And when Ren comes back after a long day at work, he finds Stimpy still on the couch. The little chihuahua is too tired to get mad and instead asks if Stimpy will do him a favor and make their dinner. And actually, he agrees. But instead of taking his time and prepping something nice for his friend, Stimpy ends up burning because he cooks while watching the TV. The fire department shows up, but instead of putting out flames, they've got some other ideas.
It's time for Fire Patrol!
The next day, Ren tells Stimpy to go play with his friends instead of rotting his brain with TV. Stimpy agrees, but instead of playing, Ren finds them all hiding in a tree and, you guessed it, watching TV. He even finds Stimpy watching TV with a mole underground, and that's the last straw for Ren, who takes his friend's screen time addiction into his own hands, smashing the TV set. That night, Ren is trying to relax with a book, but something feels off. Stimpy keeps asking to use the bathroom, and when Ren peeks through the keyhole, he sees his friend has relapsed. Ren kicks the door down and finds Stimpy glowing green and twitching from too much screen time, so he decides to lock him in the basement, hoping time away will fix him. Time passes, and Ren sits by the fire reading poetry and listening to opera, you know, classic non-TV stuff all in the basement. Stimpy has a nightmare about being eaten by Muddy Skipper. After a year, Ren checks in and finds Stimpy calm and well-behaved, so he decides to release him, thinking the worst is over. And it is, although Stimpy's got himself a new addiction. In Rens Brain, Stimpy works late in a spooky lab, trying to conduct experiments on a brain. Maybe he's trying to make himself one that actually works. After another failure, he's frustrated and decides he needs a better brain to work with. So that night, while Ren sleeps peacefully, he has an idea. He carefully performs surgery and removes Ren's brain, storing it in a tank filled with biofluid for future testing. Satisfied, Stimpy heads off to bed, but the next morning, Ren's brain wakes up, completely unaware it's no longer in his body. Using some dangling nerves as limbs, it crawls out of the tank, gets dressed, and heads to work like nothing's happened. Stimpy enters the lab to begin his experiments, only to discover the brain is missing. Panicked, he wonders what Ren will do if he finds out. Meanwhile, Ren's now brainless body is still at home, wandering around in a zombie-like state. Rather than fix things, Stimpy decides to have fun, dragging the vacant Ren around as a friend that'll finally do what he wants. Ren's brain returns home and sees Stimpy playing with his own lifeless body. It's still clueless as it thinks Stimpy has replaced Ren with a new roommate. But it doesn't stop him from feeling betrayed, but obviously the truth is worse, and they continue to fight as Stimpy desperately tries reaching for a sedation needle. As the struggle escalates, the camera cuts to a family watching the whole scene on TV. The tension builds until heads start exploding, houses detonate, then North America, and eventually the entire planet. Then we get this final scene.
You idiots!
In Pen Pals, Ren sees a brand new luxury prison on the news and is instantly jealous. The inmates have cable, hot meals, and even massages. All the while, Ren and Stimpy's own house is towed away because of Ren's mountain of unpaid tickets. With nowhere to go, they decide prison is the better option. Honestly, in some countries, it genuinely might be. I think in one of the Scandinavian countries they give you a PlayStation. I'm not condoning any crimes, by the way. Let's just be clear, no matter how much you want that PlayStation exclusive. To get sent to jail, their first plan is to rob a bank using a missile, but instead of getting arrested, they're met by a full military response and blown to bits. Since that doesn't work, they switch tactics and decide to break into prison instead. Ren fires a grappling hook into the building, but it ends up destroying the warden's treasured stuffed dog Rascal, a memento of a pet long gone due to a tragic chicken bone. Now furious, the warden vows to keep Ren and Stimpy out at all costs. The two wage war on the prison, demanding to be let in. Eventually, their chaos causes a major jailbreak, and 1,000 criminals escape, and the whole place is left in ruins. Defeated, the warden finally surrenders and allows them in. At first, life in jail is everything they dreamed of, until the warden gives them a massive cellmate who takes up nearly the entire space. Not quite the paradise they'd hoped for. After seeing the boys lose their home in the last episode, they're actually now living in a giant barrel in the episode Terminal Stimpy, and after their first night, Stimpy wakes up groggy, complaining that he feels like he was hit by a bus. But being a cat, he's obviously got bags of time. They've got 9 lives, right? Well, that's when Stimpy's lost lives come flashing back. He once fell asleep under the hood of Ren's car and was launched into the street when the engine started. Another time, he was caught in the crossfire of a firing squad while trying to retrieve a sombrero. He's been electrocuted on the golf course, drowned with concrete boots thanks to Ren's gambling debts, eaten by a python on a trip to the Amazon, and frozen during the blizzard of '69 after stepping outside straight from the shower. And now, getting hit by a bus. Though by his count, Stimpy has 12 lives left, but actually, it's just 1. That makes Ren the one stuck with all the chores. He tells Stimpy to light the furnace, but Stimpy struggles with the valve marked danger, bashing it with a wrench until it leaks gas everywhere. He strikes a match, but before the explosion, something else takes his final life. Ren then has to tell his flattened feline friend that he's down to his final life. Stimpy, now terrified, wraps himself in plastic and tissues, laying a trail of napkins as he shuffles through the house. That old phrase starts to echo in his mind: accept it. And so begins Stimpy's spiral through the 5 stages of grief. First comes anger. In a maid's outfit, he serves Ren breakfast with a smile, then smears toast in his face when criticized. Next is denial, sitting in a field picking petals from a flower, chanting "I'm not going to die," like it might change something. Then comes bargaining, which is basically him and Ren haggling over old furniture. Doesn't really count, but you know, what can you do? It's technically true. Depression hits next. Stimpy wanders the rain-slick streets, eventually winding up at Daisy's milk bar, where he gets drunk on buttermilk. Finally, there's acceptance. He walks quietly at sunrise along a lonely road when a car crashes nearby, not fearing death even if it's right around the corner. Back at the barrel, Ren finds Stimpy and asks where he's been. The now cool cat launches into a heartfelt speech about life being like a bowling alley. Some strikes, a few spares, nobody knows the score, and in the end, you wear cheap, squeaky shoes. Now, this is the sort of deep stuff that I want from my cartoons, man. That's poetry right there. As the friends sit together, gas begins to once again leak through the house, and when Ren goes to grab a candle for his cupcake, the barrel goes boom. In The Last Temptation, it's a beautiful morning. The birds are singing, and Ren is sitting waiting for his breakfast. Problem is, he's growing more annoyed by the second, and when Stimpy finally stumps up the goods, it's not exactly what you'd call appetizing.
Man, now that's what I call lumps.
Without thinking though, Ren launches for the ball and swallows it whole, only for it to get lodged in his throat. He tries to call out for Stimpy, but that guy hasn't got a clue his friend is about to meet his maker. The color drains from his face and Ren's mind slips into a slow-motion flashback of their life together. You know, the chaos, the nonsense, all the good stuff basically. Apart from like 6 banned episodes, of course. And just like that, Ren passes on over to the great beyond. And you'll never guess who's waiting for him at the pearly gates. Wilbur. And although he's past 2, God clearly hasn't been kind enough to make him a few years younger. But Wilbur isn't there to welcome Ren to heaven, he's there to give him a warning that the life he's currently leading isn't right, and that he needs to be kinder to people, especially Stimpy, and to be a force for good in the world. Ren sees the error of his ways and agrees to go back to the land of the living. He wakes up changed, grateful, and weirdly calm. He starts treating Stimpy like Wilbur told him. He gives up or burns all of his, and he even admits he once stole from Stimpy's piggy bank. Come on, this is a changed chihuahua we're talking about here. But if you thought that was big, Ren then goes into his personal bank and somehow withdraws $1 million and gives it to his friend to say thanks. That night at dinner, the roles flip again. This time it's Stimpy who's about to meet his end after swallowing an entire ham and begins to choke. Ren watches it unfold completely frozen, before calmly saying he'll go get help, but he doesn't move. Instead, he starts thinking about all the things he could have if Stimpy were gone. And then Ren gets a little visit.
So, back to your old tricks.
He warns Ren he's slipping back into his old, selfish ways, and deep down, Ren knows he's right. So he does what any friend should do and rushes to Stimpy's side. He sees this and finally believes Ren is a changed dog and grants him a prize. Not money, not fame, but another 50 years on planet Earth with his best friend, Stimpy. And that's where things end for the K9 and Cat duo. Well, there was a new reboot series that came out like 10 years after this called Ren and Stimpy Adult Cartoon Party, but it had none of the charm and soul of the original show. So I think it's best we pretend that it didn't exist. I hope you've all enjoyed looking through the borderline psychotic series that was Ren and Stimpy. Let me know what your favorite episode of the show is, and of course, let me know who you'd like to see me cover next. But for now, I'll catch you guys next time.